Hello and welcome to this episode of Community Connections, airing right here on OROMIA11. We are celebrating Black History Month, and today I have joining me Bill English, servant leader, businessman, and all-around gem to the greater good of mankind. We are talking about what's going on in the United States government. We're talking about how to stay engaged right here where you are, and we're talking about what it looks like as we move forward in the days ahead as a community. As always, we are better together. This is going to be an episode you won't want to miss. Stay tuned. Bill English, welcome back to the program, Community Connections.
Thank you, Anna. It's a pleasure to see you as usual. You are fantastic looking and you are fantastic in your skills. So it's good to always be in your company.
Thank you so much. Now we have you here during the month of Black History. We are celebrating all that we are and where we are yet to go. And so I thought it would be only right to have you back to talk about the state of the Black community as well as what's going on currently with the U.S. government. Now, we're going to jump right on in.
Okay.
We are about to wrap up Black History Month. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to you specifically in this current climate of the Trump administration, knowing what you know, that he has tried to eliminate Black History Month, and our local government here within the state of Minnesota has said we are not doing away with Black History Month. We are actively celebrating.
And I think that has something to do with the historic nature, in spite of its abject racism. It has still been a pretty decent place, a better place for some black people to live, a more enlightened, a Hubert Humphrey, who would go to the National DFL convention and be the first senator to stand up and recognize the black Mississippi delegation led by Fannie Lou Hamer and say, you will seat them. They will get a vote. And the white Mississippians get their vote, but they're going to get their vote too. And so it's that context of what you put Minnesota as slightly being different than some other states. Now, they chartered our area in North Minneapolis as the Negro slum. That's in the charter. So the reason it's slightly different here, I think, is because of some of that. And there are other states that I had Negro history in an all-black school in 1940-some. Negro history, I had 4 years of history. I had American history, world history. No, I had world history first, American history second, Illinois history third, and Negro history fourth. I went to all black school taught by black teachers. So the history of our people has been embedded. What the world does not recognize is that when you hear talk about the 1619 Project, people need to understand we were here from 1619 on. Long before we came here slaves, we were free people here in 1619. So understand that this second-class citizenship came out of slavery. They saw they could not subdue the Indians and make them slavery. Why? The native indigenous people knew the territory. And they would fight. They would fight for their land. They fought till they were outnumbered so severely and out-weaponized with rifles and bullets. They fought with bows and arrows. So they finally had to succumb, to be defeated. But we are standing on sacred land that belonged to the indigenous people. I respect that. I didn't ask to come here, but I was brought here. And I was brought here, and I contributed to the wealth of this country more than any other one, more than you. And I did, we did, to the progressive of America more than any other race. We contributed more to the economy, the culture. You can't tell me an area that we have not excelled in teaching the world a lesson. That's why some people said if the world is going to be saved, it's going to be saved by black people. People forget that 2/3 of the world are not white. 2/3 are not white. So we need to recognize those kinds of things as we reflect on black history, African American history. I choose to call it black history because it encompasses those who are not necessarily African Americans. And on the other hand, I recognize a separate group is the American descendants of slavery. We are both, and we have to recognize that. And there are unique differences, you know, as well as I like Seffi. His culture is not the same as mine. I learn from his culture, and he's learning from mine. But these cultures is what makes this gumbo, all work and come together. The one thing we share is this and oppression.
What do you believe is fueling the erasure of our contributions to this country?
It is fear. Fear that, number one, their population is no longer going to be the majority, and they know that. Number two, they think we're going to treat them the way they treated us, okay, which has never been the case. They fear that, and they fear that in spite of all they've done to us, and still we rise. They can't figure it out. Now you go to some of the people that was part of the insurrection on that January 6th date. Some of those people are rabid football fans. They will go to an Alabama game and cheer for the black players, and the minute they come out of the arena and they won the game, they talk about them like they had tails. So, as far as I'm concerned, it is fear that is driving it, and some recognition that their numbers are diminishing and ours are going. They should have realized that 2/3 of the world is not white anyway. And so they came here to take over, and so at one point they're going to be outnumbered. So it's a natural thing to occur. And now we didn't start miscegenation. We didn't start that. They did. Okay? And we need to recognize that. This word was, interracial relationships. It started with forced rape of our women. Children would come from those forced rapes and be raised in the same families. Often they weren't always sold away. It was some decent white people that taught us to read at candlelight. So, this mixed love affair with black and white people has been going on for years. But what's fueling it now, which is to get directly to your question, is their fear. Overall, it's fear. It's fear that they will be treated the way we were treated. Number two, that they're going to be outnumbered. And number three is that in spite of all they have done to keep us oppressed, we still rise. You had a black man serve as president 2 terms. He got elected. There's no way he could have got elected without some allies. So we have to recognize those allies. It doesn't mean that many of them do not understand white supremacy. But it's our job to teach them. And that's what I do best. I call it out. Whenever I see it, I call it out. And I say it's unacceptable. And many of us call it. I'm not the only one. We got strong, and they've been around. Look, when they formed the NAACP, that was some strong, bold black people with some white allies, okay? So you go back when Tuskegee Institute was formed, as a 2-year college, that was Booker T. Washington that started that. And so you go on and you expand yourself to the historical black universities and campuses have turned out some of the most brilliant men and women in America. Today, they're still coming out, doing something, on to something, making things work. So that's the reason this thing is being fueled. They keep saying, in spite of what we do, as she says, we rise.
I think that's very well said. Were you surprised at the outcome of the most recent United States election?
I was surprised to this extent. You never can predict how a presidential election will turn. But I knew two things. I knew, one, that the first woman to be president was going to have to be white. I knew that. This is what I call the white girl syndrome. And no disrespect to that. They want a white woman to be president, the first woman president.
Can you expound on why you have that belief?
I believe that because I've observed them. They abandoned Kamala Harris. They abandoned her, not because she wasn't right on the ideas, but this time around. And look, I don't necessarily blame them, because had Joe Biden been what he said he would be, a transition president, she'd have had an opportunity to advance. And they would have had an opportunity to see, they what's the word I want to use? They screwed it up by, that's a bad word too. They messed it up by doing two things. After he had that disastrous debate, they realized he couldn't do it. Besides, he had promised he would be a transition president.
Right.
But he thought he could win again, and he wasn't prepared to win again. And so he held on too late. Then when they had to come up with someone, you couldn't have a regular process. If she had went through a regular process of debates with other candidates for president, she'd have still won. And white women would have had a chance to compete. In this case, they didn't even have a chance to compete. And that's what irritated them. So they said, well, sure. So they went over to Trump, or stayed on. She still only lost by 1.7%. Instead of that, 1.7% would have put her over the top. So that just tells me it wasn't black women or black men that didn't use her. Now there's some Latino men that vote against her. And there are a few brothers who are out there who nutty, don't know what's going on. But for the most part, she got 93% of the black vote. That's amazing. Couldn't be much higher, because Obama got 95. Okay? So that just tells you that this issue of where we are now, instead of this administration now, feels so emboldened. We know who Trump was. They knew who Trump was. And he will mess it up. He will mess it up, trust me. In 2 years, if the Democrats do the right thing, they will gain control of the House and the Senate. Because he's getting ready to mess with middle-class white people's money and lower people, the poor white people. He's only got a third of the vote anyway. And when he starts taking away their Medicare, taking away their free clinics in the community, cutting their food stamps, and then middle-class white people getting more than the rich, he's going to cut the corporate tax to 15%. Do you know what the corporate tax was under Bill Clinton? 35% was taxes. And they did very well. It was still the wealthiest country in the world. They did very well with 35% taxes on businesses. Now, that when you think about what corporations get, they get a chance to operate. They get a chance to get the police to protect them. They get a chance to get use of water and sewage and electricity. All of those things given to them because they got a license. Okay? Those licenses were not distributed fairly. So on the news media side and on the corporate side, it's all about the profit, the almighty dollar. Capitalism is fine, but only if everybody can be a capitalist. There's a book called The Capitalist Manifesto that was written in 1946 by an economist and a lawyer out of San Francisco. And they had the idea, look, the only way capitalism will survive the way not Stalin, the other Russian, can't think of his name, started the Communist Party. Now what they're seeing is that he is truly corrupt. Those people down there and that third that voted for him, they didn't elect Elon Musk to be nothing. And it is very clear he's a subject of Elon Musk for money. That's very clear. He's the subject of Elon Musk, Vladimir Putin, and the Chinese don't care nothing about either one of them because they stand alone. They say we're as big and as bad as either one of you three. So they stand alone. But he is trying to help Putin because people claim Putin's got something on him, and that may or may not be true. But what I do know, I've never seen an American president lick up to Putin the way he does. And everybody knows what Putin is. Even the Russians know. The economy is a mess. They couldn't even fight a battle. At least 100,000 North Korean soldiers had to come fight the so-called mighty Russian army against a makeshift army headed by a former TV comic to stand up to Putin and said no. But you got to understand what Putin is doing is to expand the Russian Empire. He can't do it. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe, okay? And that's what he wants, control of that breadbasket. Because in Russia, we know the economy in Russia is poor. We know that. It's there, it's obvious. The oligarchs have everything. The oligarchs have everything. And so at this point, when we start talking about D, E, and I, in that context, they're saying that's racist. That's anti-white people. That is not the case at all, and they know that. It's a propaganda thing. If you look at the Congress. So I say this to my white liberal colleagues and allies. Why are you permitting your Republican congressman to silently hang their head and off the record talk about how bad he is and still vote for him? So you got one opportunity. You got an opportunity to take him out in 2 years and control both House and the Senate. In the next 2 years, we should do nothing to help him. The Democrats, if they can't get a budget together, I'm like them. Let them sink us like Jasmine Crockett. Watch her. She's going to be something special. But she's saying to them, for the Democratic Party, we're not going to help you out. You got all 3 offices? Now, you do it on your own. Don't have a budget. Shut the government down. It ain't our fault. We're not running it. Okay? So those are the kinds of things that you see happening. And so by getting rid of D, E, and I, he focuses the attention as if white people are being discriminated against, when in fact they are not. And we need to make sure the clarion message is, white people are not being discriminated against. Give me one instance where they're being discriminated against. There's not a single institution. The black men who ran the Army, the top American general, 5-star, Colin Powell, a Republican, stood for what was right. The current Secretary of Defense, a strong, big black man that knew how to run the Army and knew how the Defense Department could protect America. They got a lightweight now running who don't know his way up. My grandmother knew me several words. Say I won't say it on television because it's profane. I'm the hole in the ground, so to speak. They know what I'm saying. And he's trying to run the Army. My prediction is the Army will at some point save us. They are not going to violate. They don't owe no allegiance to the president. They swear allegiance to the Constitution. And we're going to be in a constitutional crisis in about 10 months. And now it's going to be up to the Supreme Court to either cave or stand up. I don't believe the court wants to change this democracy to a fascist state, in spite of some of the conservatives that are there. I think in the final analysis, the American democracy, as bad as it is, I don't know that I'd want to go anywhere else to live. And I'd love to be among my people. I love Barbados. I'd like to go there. And it's one of the free islands that's not corrupt. I'm 55% Nigerian, and I get treated like the Nigerians, like I'm some stranger. My great uncle on my mother's side was one of the few people to go start Liberia. His name was Arthur Shores. I met his son, who was born here, and he took him to Liberia. His wife wouldn't go. So he took his son with him and went back to farm Liberia. But during World War II, because he was an American citizen, he got drafted. And he had to come back here to be in the Army. Well, he had a condition called dancing eyes. His eyes moved quite, so he couldn't be in the Army. So they sent him out to Seattle to build ships. And that's how he served his military duty, building ships. So even in Liberia, they don't recognize that it was black people, black Americans, who formed Liberia and set it up as a country. Now Liberians come here because black congressmen expanded the quota to allow more Africans to come. Because Trump told you he want more white people to come. Sweden and Norwegians, why can't some of them come? Well, they already got a huge quota, and nothing stopping them from coming but him. Okay? But look at the quota for black people across the world, in this country. And you see much smaller numbers of black people coming.
With so many corporations becoming more outspoken about the repeal of DEI and where they're standing, Target, whose headquarters are here in the state of Minnesota, are now facing backlash because they shared that they were no longer going to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, and are now being sued from their shareholders because of multi-million-dollar loss.
And not only that, I happen to know a senior executive at Target. We've worked together. I mean, it's his top level. And I sent him my Target card and a note. Said, I'm terribly disappointed that you, of all people, would allow Target to take this kind of position. Why can't you be like Costco? What is it? Do you know who your customers are? So you getting ready to get hurt not only from your stockholders, you're going to get hurt from boycotts. It's going on right now. And on the 28th day of this month, there's going to be a boycott of all white people, all white businesses. Black people are not going to spend $1 that day. We're calling for it. Don't spend nothing unless to buy your child some milk. Okay.
There is so much, there are so many, corporations that are coming forward saying that they're participating. Target, Amazon, the list goes on. What do you feel as consumers, as Black consumers, we can do to start and make our presence felt to these corporations? I understand that you said that you felt personally let down by the choices Target made and that there are boycotts to come, but there are so many people that are saying, this was my primary store, or I Amazon things because I have to because of where I live, and now they're choosing to walk away. But what do you feel we have the power to do as consumers?
I think we have the power to do it. One thing, we got along without Amazon before it existed. Now, there's Kohl's. There are other stores that we can purchase from. And if we quit giving Bezos, Bezos owns Amazon, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. If we quit giving Bezos our money and cancel them Prime subscriptions, he'll feel the pressure. It's about money. Money talks, everything else walks, okay? And so he will know that this is hurting his business and watch him back off. They will back off of DE&I. That's not going to change the South. The change in the South when Texas calls slavery an internship. Then it's the people, the Black people in Dallas need to take all those books that says that, take them to the middle of the town square at the Capitol and burn them. You are not going to tell us we were interned, we were slaves. That's the kind of stand-up. We have to stand up. We either stand up or we lay down. And Martin Luther King says, if you're not at the table, you own the table. And that is absolutely true. So we must be at the table, and we must be willing to take direct action. Until the March on Washington, we didn't get a Civil Rights Act. And that took 250,000 Black people to go to D.C. and protest in order to get the 64 Civil Rights Act passed. And Lyndon Johnson, a white segregationist, said, it's not right. I'm President of the United States. I'm going to sign the bill. And he and a Democratic congressman out of Illinois decided they were going to push the 64 Civil Rights Act. And they were able to do it. And so we now stand where the Civil Rights Act is under attack by Doge, this Elon Musk thing. It's under attack. He's saying it's reverse racism, which is crazy. And so we just have to cut through the chaff and quit listening to don't go to the internet for our news. Go to OROMIA11. Go to CBS. At least you'll get a half good story. You'll go to NBC, go to CNN, and even look to see sometimes what Fox is saying. Because knowing where your enemy is coming from is just as important. The Trojan horse, remember that story?
Yes, sir.
We need to infiltrate Fox News by listening to what they're saying and then quit buying their programming. Okay?
Many are nervous about the ICE raids taking place across the United States. And for those of us that have been around a little bit longer than some, we understand that it's a trickle-down effect. If they are coming for your neighbor, eventually they may come knocking on your door. For those that feel like this isn't our issue to fight, or that we shouldn't have any cause for concern because we've been here or we're African Americans, what do you say to those watching?
I say this. This is our home. It's not our homeland. It is our home. And it is up to us to join with allies and fight the corruption and the diminishing of our rights. I don't know where people stand on the subject of choice, but I do know ain't nobody should tell a woman what to do because they don't tell men what to do, okay? So that's wrong. So my sense to it, and the Voting Rights Act that John Lewis put together has to happen because they're trying to disenfranchise us. I was prepared, Anna, had I not got sick, to go to Atlanta. It was 3 of us. We was going to go to Atlanta. We were going to give out water for people standing in line to vote and deliberately go to jail. We wanted to say, we're with you from the North. In Minnesota, we can register and vote the same day. There's no reason people in Atlanta, in Georgia, shouldn't have the same right. The only reason you don't have that right is they don't want you to vote. And they did everything they could to keep you from voting. Even when you had a PhD, they'd tell you, count the number of beans in a jelly bean jar. And that crazy stuff. That's not all going away, Anna. And that's why you see this rush to change the history books, the rush to disallow DE&I, and then proclaim that white people are being racist. That's what Elon's are being discriminated against. That's what Elon Musk just said night before last. And there's no evidence to support that. And as long as we buy that, then we have to communicate our community. And it's kind of where we started. This program is a program that needs to be amplified by any means necessary. We should tell our community that this is here for you. Listen, and you'll know what's going on around the world, and you will get truth. You won't get no propaganda. You'll get truth, because Anna don't play that.
We're doing the best that we can here at OROMIA11 to amplify what is taking place and how it is affecting those around us and those that look like you and me every day. And hopefully we will continue to keep up the amazing work. How do you remain hopeful in the face of adversity, seeing America over the last 90 years?
Well, it started like this. I believe there's a God somewhere. My grandmother taught me God don't like ugly. And when you're being ugly to his people, it will be fixed. So it is my faith. But faith without action is not enough. We have to have faith and we have to act. Look what happened at the city council last week. Okay?
Can you talk a little bit about that for those that may not be familiar?
Last week at the city council, 2-3 council people decided that they were going to take money from programs that had reduced crime by 31% in North Minneapolis, 21 days apiece. They didn't want them to have the money because this lady from the 2nd Ward, Rhonda
Wowsley.
Is her name Rosalind?
I don't know her first name, but I believe her last name is Wowsley.
Well, anyway, she's starts with an R. She and Chavez, whose agenda has been all LBGT anyway.
Okay.
They were, Reverend McAfee went to the hearing to say, you cannot take money from us and give it to somebody they made a motion to give the money to Hennepin County, who would then give the money to their preferred choices, which is their friends. And they haven't earned anything. And so the question becomes one of, why would the city give Hennepin County money that can be spent right here with people who are making a difference? They talked about the white girl they pulled out of a garage that had been sex trafficked, and they got her cleaned up, got her in school. They talk about the young black women who were being taught to carry guns from those mothers love pull those people out and get them on the right track. So why would you take the little money you give them away to give to somebody else because you got 3 black council people that don't care nothing about their own people? They're so far left of center, they wanted to get rid of the police. And even the most uneducated black person I've seen in the barbershop would say to me, why do they want to get rid of the police? Don't they see the blood standing over there on the corner? What is they going to happen? They go in these old people's house sometime, they take them over, give them a little money, pay their bills, and they sell drugs out of the house. And they can't help it, they force them. These are the things they're doing, and we want police to be there. And if we don't want police, because we're 200 and some odd police down, then we got to use community people to do that. They work with the police. They don't try to be police, but they first try to deter them, to deter them. You want a job? You want to get your GED? We'll help you. You need a house? We'll help you. So that's what's going on. And when they were at the city council meeting, they tried to get that money done, and she was so disrespectful that when Jerry McAfee was speaking, she pulled out an apple on the stand and started eating the apple. Jason Chavez stuck his hands up like he was going to get ready to get shot. Now, Jerry did say, because he's straight up, I didn't come here to fight. I came here to tell you to do your job. But now I am not going to be acting like you're doing something right, because you aren't. And I believe the majority of the city council don't believe you're doing it right. So you, young lady, were being so disrespectful. He told Chavez, he said, you acting like a little girl. Yeah. Okay. So he said.
Tensions were very high at that meeting.
Yeah.
I definitely saw footage from that meeting. But my question to you is this: what do you say to people at home that watch that take place, whether it be in real time on the news or they saw the clips on social media and they have concerns for their community, for their children, and for their safety, and want to have their voices heard and their concerns heard? What do you say to them?
I say to them, be aware of what's going on. They all got to run for re-election next year. This is the time to organize, mobilize, and be ready to take them out. And we have the ability to do that in each of those 3 wards. Okay? It's only 3 wards. Ellison is not running again. So we're going to have to decide who's going to replace him. And if they come half-stepping, what I mean about that, we need to understand where they stand on the issues. Why can't we bring our police force up to normal? Yeah, and if we have to pay the police the money, it's like teachers. Pay them a good salary, okay? But then hold them accountable for doing their job. You know, I'm sorry, but you know, Minneapolis has got $100 million deficit. They're waiting to put a black woman in so that she would have to deal with that deficit, okay? Never mind, she didn't cause it. Because they gave the union an exorbitant contract. They elected politicians. The union, president of the union is running for the school board. The president of the Minneapolis Teachers Union is running for the school board. Now, if that's not a conflict of interest, nothing is. So these are the things our community needs to know. And it's important in Black history that you educate yourself on everything that you can. I want to say to my young brothers and sisters, we love you. We want to protect you. We have information that you need. As my grandmother said, we can put some fat on your head. In other words, some intelligence in your head, so you are making the right decision. We're not going to tell you what decision to make. We just want you to have all the facts. Okay? Now, you already know that when it comes to a basketball game, y'all don't have no problem calling foul when it's a foul. On the street, on the courts. You don't have no problem calling a foul a foul. So why can't we call a foul now? When them 3 people on the city council, we call them foul. You fouled, and you gone. You fouled out. Because this is their first thing. They spent $6 million to get rid of the police, Anna. $30 million came into Minneapolis, for George Floyd, come from all over the world. Mm-hmm. That money ended up being $30 million. 30 also went to St. Paul. There's been no transparency in how that money was spent. We know they spent $6 million to get rid of the police, but that still left $24 million. Nexus is the fiscal agent, but they don't make the decisions on how the money is distributed. And for us, as a community, and particularly in African American History Week, we need to say our most recent history, the brutal murder of a black man, brought $30 million in town. And not a single person who was engaged in that has had the guts and the courage to stand up and say, this is how we spent the money.
My last question to you. What is your hope for Black people in the days ahead?
My hope for my people is that I believe we will put on the face of the earth as Black people to be the salvation for the world. I honestly believe that. So the hope for us in America, which is where we are, is to do what Holder said and Obama is saying. Mobilize, mobilize, organize. And if we do that, if you can elect a black senator a white senator from Alabama that support black causes, you can do anything. We came this close to being the governor of Florida. Okay? What that lady did in Georgia is unreal. For some reason that name slips my mind right now. But you know who I'm talking about. She also is a writer. She writes books as well. Talented lady. You know who I'm talking about? She led the battle to get voting rights in Atlanta.
Stacey Abrams.
Stacey Abrams. Amber knows her well. I don't know why I couldn't think of Stacey Abrams' name. But anyway, those are the kind of people that we lead. And my job is to tell black men, because some of us got some real serious gender issues. I don't play that. And I quit a club. I quit a club I belonged to for 30 years because they didn't seem to understand that I believed that women can do anything men can do. That I believe women can run things as well as men. Matter of fact, we're better. And I've said that. I once wrote a paper in undergraduate school that said the only way we were going to change America is when a white woman became president. And I wrote it just like that because I knew 2 things. They don't like sending their sons to war. They don't like that. And they don't like their daughters not having a chance to have a real career because that was something they didn't have. They had to be housewives. They were dictated to stay home. They didn't like that. And so that's how, so my hope of where we're going now is to do exactly what Obama and Jeffrey Holder said, Godfrey Holder said, organize, mobilize, circle the wagons. You know, we're circling the wagons right now every day. We know how to survive in tough times. We've done it before. We will do it again. So let them run off and do what they want to do. We organize, we stay mobilized, and we connect each other. And let's spend a little more time being respectful and loving each other. Let's spend a little more time on that. Mamas, Shaniqua, whoever you out there, get your kids into church someplace on Sunday and let them understand there are other ways, whether they end up being Christian, Islamic, or Jewish. I don't care. But get them involved. Get them involved so they can understand there are values that are part of the Christian faith and other faiths that does say how you treat people. There's no difference in what the Oromo people believe in their own religion as opposed to Christian. Those are things that I think are important. I went to the Million Man March and I raised my hand that I would never attack a black man unless to defend myself. I meant that. And I've not done that. And Lord knows I had a fiery temper. I had a fiery temper. Because I grew up hitting you in your mouth if you'd said something wrong. But I got past that. And so now I don't need to be physical with you. I can outthink you, but if you think you're just gonna bow me down because I'm old, you're wrong. Like I said, I've been whipped before. So whipping me, getting my behind whipped is not something that hasn't happened to me before. You just better be able to do it again, because you're gonna have to do me the next time you see me. But I don't know if that answered your question or not, but I had to tell you that story. I hope I get to the fact that our coming together, circling the wagons, in summary, treat each other with respect, demand that our children treat adults with respect, demand that, and teach them the way they should be taught. And if you don't have the skills to do it, ask somebody. Ask some older lady to help you with your kids who raise families. We have enough resources in our community to help any young woman who has a child and don't know quite what to do and don't have an education. We have the resources to help them. They just got to take advantage of it, okay? And that's all we need to do, and we'll be fine.
Mr. English, thank you for joining me on this episode of Community Connections. It has been a gift to glean just a few gems of your wisdom throughout the last 90 years. And thank you for being the servant leader that you have been here and far beyond.
Well, I want to thank you and OROMIA11 for inviting me and the other good programming you do. So I want to leave, my final message is expand your reach, advertise, and let people know you exist. I guarantee you there are people over in that university would be tuning in with their headphones on if they knew this channel existed. They would do that. They got their phones. There's no reason they shouldn't know. If they can be on the side of the Palestinians, as I am, if they can be on the side, you're not going to take Gaza and build no multi-million Riviera. You're not going to do that. And the Americans are not going to stand for that. I was around when you took Palestine from the Palestinians and gave it to Israel. I was around. I saw that. And you used a black man to do it, Ralph Bunche. My point is, I really want our community to know about OROMIA 11, know what its mission and purpose is, and understand that it's available to you. And you can tape it and watch it when you want to. And I urge my community to do as I do. Watch it. Watch it. Because it is important that we know what goes on with our brothers and sisters who are here as naturalized citizens, but who are as pressed as we are. And so they need to understand it is when we come together, recognizing and teaching each other the value of our cultures and values, we're going to be better off. The more I learn about the Oromo community, the more I like. Okay?
Thank you so much, Mr. English, for being here on this episode of Community Connections. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for this Black History Month episode. I hope that something that was shared today you have found inspirational, educational, and above all else, uplifting and encouraging you to keep on going. As always, I am your host, Anna Orr. This has been Community Connections, airing on OROMIA 11. I look forward to connecting again with you soon.